Hi, good afternoon, good evening, good morning. My name is John Phillips. I'm part of Cisco's industrial product marketing team, industrial security product marketing team. I'm going to be talking to you today about two announcements that we made at Cisco Live EMEA. They're really around enabling you to manage your multi-site industrial security at scale. And I think, just setting out what we have here on the screen is the problem that, often teams are already caught in a loop of just trying to keep the security infrastructure updated. Think about multiple operations within a country or around the world. You might have certain sites running firmware, and then, site 10 is running the latest firmware. Site 5 is running a firmware that's a couple of versions old. And when it comes to threat intelligence, you have the same scenario. Some of your infrastructure is running the latest threat intelligence and some isn't. And that really just presents a growing cyber risk that you need to be aware of. The other second big problem is that when it comes to ingesting the telemetry from your sites, you really need a way to ingest telemetry for various persona, but specifically to drive a security and risk program at scale. If you're just looking at a site-by-site basis, you're only getting a snapshot of your cyber risk or your operations. You really need an aggregated view to look at all of your operations and understand where the risk is so that you can take action. And I think this becomes especially pertinent in the current climate where we're faced with continuous skill shortages. You simply don't have OT folks that have the security expertise. And on the other side as well, IT teams are struggling to understand what the OT security risk is. So these two features, Cisco CyberVision Site Manager that we'll showcase now, as well as the new Splunk application, the CyberVision Splunk application, really address the challenge of managing your OT security at scale. So we introduced the CyberVision Site Manager at EMEA. This is part of your CyberVision licensing, so you can get access to this. It's going to be a GA around April time, and you can really ingest. It's really built, so this replaces the global site manager, and this really helps you. You see on the screen there to get a centralized view over all of your CyberVision centers and sensors. For instance, if you're rolling out CyberVision across multiple sites, you can now track the deployment of those sensors. And there's no more silos, when it comes to understanding, are your centers running the latest firmware? Are they running the latest threat intelligence? And we've also got a new augmenting of CyberVision's alerting engine with this new feature release. What this does is it basically gives you the insight on all communication flows of all of your assets. So you can now start tracking and seeing, for instance, why is this PLC communicating with an IP address from a country that's on the sanctioned list? So you can set alerting around that and really get a handle on the communication mapping of all of your assets in your environment. And as we say on the screen that you see there, is the whole intention is to give your security teams the time back. So get them out of the loop of just ensuring the operational functioning of your infrastructure, and let them actually start reducing the attack surface and actually detecting any vulnerabilities and threats in your environment. And so when it comes to CyberVision Site Manager, you'll see here that now that you ensure that you can see, for instance, you've got the indicators in green telling you what version of the firmware your centers are running, telling you the connection status. Before you would have to log into a CyberVision site and understand and get just a snapshot of that particular site and see whether your sensors are operational. Now you can get the aggregate view of that and ensure that all of your sensors are operational, the health of those sensors, whether there's any communication challenges. And really, again, when it comes to deploying CyberVision Site Manager, this is a great dashboard where you can track the real-time deployment of those sensors across your environment. You can now easily troubleshoot any issues. You're no longer going site by site looking for issues. And you can also track the license usage and ensure that you're compliant with the number of licenses that you have for the deployment of CyberVision. And as I've mentioned at the outset, one of the key features is this new capability really enables you to update one center as easily, or update 50 centers as easily as one center. So This is really about improving the operational efficiency of your security teams in keeping the infrastructure updated. We've also built in security capabilities because this is a cloud connected feature. So you can routinely rotate the API keys to ensure that your cloud connection always remains secure, as well as ensure that your web server certificate is valid to prevent any possibilities of a web server related compromise. So the whole intention is that you keep your infrastructure updated without disrupting any operations. No more, site visits required. You can all do this from a centralized manner. The most powerful capability of CyberVision Site Manager, CVSM for short, is really the threat intel piece. We really listened to our customers, and they wanted an easy way to ensure that all the centers and sensors are running the latest threat intelligence and snort ML detection signatures. And so you get this now with CVSM. So this really puts you on the front foot of risk and threat detection. And we know that the geopolitical environment, we know that cyber attacks are increasing, specifically targeting OT infrastructure. So this becomes a very important capability to keep you resilient from a cyber risk standpoint. And again, I already mentioned that communication capability to view all the communication across your assets. Here you see the dashboard showing you anomalous communications with external networks. This now gives you that centralized view where you can now see all of the communication of all of your assets, and you can actually set alerts on IP geolocations. For instance, if you don't want any communication with a certain country, let's say a country on a sanctioned list, you can now set those alerts and get alerts to those unauthorized communications from this with this dashboard. So if we think about CVSM that we've just focused on, and that's really giving time back to teams to focus on the important work that matters, keeping you on the front foot from a cyber resilience standpoint, ensuring that all of your infrastructure, your security infrastructure is up to date and operational across all of your sites. View the CyberVision application for Splunk as the other side of that coin. So what you could view it as a dashboarding engine, and really we're enabling you to monitor your security posture and build a security and risk governance program at scale. It's got fantastic reporting capabilities that we'll get into, but this comes out of the box. You can go into the Splunk base and download this application. For clarity, this runs on Splunk Core. So this is not the top tier of the Splunk SIM enterprise security offering that's needed. You can download this. If you're a CyberVision customer and you've got multiple sites, you can go in there and download this. Obviously, you will pay there are limits to how much data you can ingest on a per day basis for free. So you'll have to just determine what your data consumption data ingest will be, and then take it from there. You will be charged if you go over those free daily limits. But the power of this new CyberVision Splunk application is that we have a bunch of new dashboards, pre-built dashboards, including focus views per site, global security posture, asset inventory. I'll give you some insight into all of these. And like it says on the slide, that you can also now schedule reporting where you can take a snapshot of those dashboards. You can include context, and you can say on a weekly basis, send X dashboard to the CISO or to whoever may be needing it. You also have the capability of being able to build your own custom dashboards for various persona. So a very powerful new addition is the new CyberVision as Splunk application. So let's give you a quick overview of some of the dashboards that we have. Here's the global overview dashboard. Like I said, where you're getting a global overview of all of your operations and really just phenomenal insights. And this is a pre-built out-of-the-box dashboard that you get with the application. You also get a focus view per center where you can go dive deep and look at, if there's a site of interest that you just want to dive into, you now get the dashboard to do that. And you can, do further analysis on that. This is fantastic for SecOps teams or for OT teams just wanting to understand the operational insights for a particular site. Then we have the operational and security overview. This is for where you get an aggregate view of security events and it's got a great timeline reporting capability where you can really drill into and understand security events and get the timeline of those events in your environment with a lot of context. So a great forensics and security SecOps dashboard that you can use today. And then we have the asset summary dashboard, a fantastic dashboard for OT plant manager wanting to know what assets have been introduced. And for instance, taking action. Did the team over the weekend introduce assets that are not authorized or sanctioned? So you can now detect those new assets and get alerting on those new assets, which is very powerful from a risk mitigation standpoint. As well as, thinking of when you're doing an audit and you want to understand what assets are in your environment, what are the dates of those assets. If you're doing a refresh, you now have the ability to get this data pulled into a dashboard. And like I said, you can export this data and with Splunk's native exporting capabilities, there's a whole way, or it's PNG, CSV, etc., where you can export the data and make sense out of it. The vulnerabilities overview is another very powerful dashboard. So just think of the vulnerabilities, the vulnerability dashboard that you get in CyberVision. Now you're getting the aggregate view of your vulnerabilities across all of your operations. So for instance, when the CISO or the board asks the CISO, hey, we need a risk snapshot of our environment from a vulnerability standpoint, before you would be going into each CyberVision site, compiling that data, maybe exporting it into an Excel spreadsheet to get an aggregate view. You now have an aggregate view in this dashboard where you can get a global snapshot and understand where you have your highest risk vulnerabilities and take action. So, with CyberVision's vulnerability detection capability, you now have the ability to say, hey, these are tier 1 critical vulnerabilities that we need to address across all of these sites. Here's the data to drive that down. And obviously it's dynamic, it's real time. You're getting the vulnerabilities updated on a real time basis, from your CyberVision sites. And just to, at the outset, you're ingesting all of this data via API into Splunk. So it's a very easy setup to ingest this. And there's additional capabilities with the Splunk OT security add-on that you can also leverage to get additional insights on top of these dashboards. It wouldn't be Splunk if you weren't able to tune and get the alerts that matter. And yeah, we have the real-time syslog, so you can really customize your alerts and get the alerts that you want in your environment. We know that OT environments can be noisy, so this gives you the ability to get the alerts that matter into a dashboard. And as I mentioned, you can obviously build your own custom dashboard with Splunk processing language. It's super easy to build dashboards for the various persona in across your organization. It might be a plant manager, it might be the security manager that you want to develop custom dashboards for. This gives you the power to really develop your own. Obviously, reach out to the team if you need any additional your account representative or Splunk a representative for any additional assistance to build. But there is really endless possibilities of what you can do in Splunk with the telemetry that you're getting from CyberVision. And as I've mentioned throughout, the reporting capability is very powerful. You can set these dashboards, you can take snapshots of various dashboards to run at particular hours of any day of the week or months, and you can add as many email recipients as you want. And you can also add context and say, hey, this is the vulnerabilities dashboard for sites 1 through 5, or this is the global security posture the monthly global security posture dashboard that you're getting. So this is a really powerful capability to start building that security and risk governance program and start really showcasing the value and the power of CyberVision for managing multi-site industrial security at scale. In the marketing world, and you'll see this across our website. We really do talk about CyberVision as built for scale, and this is one of the capabilities that shows how CyberVision just scales seamlessly across all of your industrial infrastructure, but more importantly, secures it and shows you the value of how it's keeping your environment secure. Just before I got a few more slides, I'll show you this slide over here that just gives you the art of the possible of viewing your operational telemetry with your security telemetry in one dashboard. This first dashboard that you see is We built something similar for a customer, and it basically gives you that aggregate view of, here's your operational telemetry from your plant and your security telemetry coming in from CyberVision. In the back, you've got the vulnerabilities dashboard, one of the out-of-the-box dashboards that you get with the new CyberVision application for Splunk. And as I've mentioned, the power of this is really being able to monitor your OT security posture at scale. We know that teams are thinly stretched, and that the threat environment is only becoming more adversarial. Threats are only increasing. So you really do need that visibility, that centralized visibility over all of your operations to understand where the risk is, where the threats are, to take action in a speedy way. This really helps you do that. It pulls your team out of that endless loop of just trying to keep your security infrastructure updated. And like I say, you drive your OT security across all of your sites, rather than a site-by-site basis. You've got an enterprise-wide strategic program, and the power of Splunk really lets you build these dashboards for whatever stakeholder wants insights on from CyberVision. And then to conclude, that these two new capabilities really help you operationalize your OT security program at scale. And it also fosters a lot of cross-functional collaboration through simplifying the OT security complexity that can arise when you're trying to run a program at scale. And it really helps bridge the OT and IT divide. We know CyberVision is built for OT teams, and obviously IT teams set the policies, and now these two capabilities really let you get your operations in play at scale in a very seamless way. And we're starting to obviously scale industrial security with automation. We've got asset discovery, vulnerability assessment, all of these capabilities embedded in CyberVision, and that really helps you stay on the front foot in a threat landscape that is only becoming more adversarial. I don't know if there's any questions, but Emily, that's all that I had for today, but happy to take questions from folks.
Awesome. Yeah, if there's any questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A panel, or you can come off mute and ask them live. But I think we've got everything answered in the Q&A panel. We can certainly make the certified CyberVision training available. So we can do that after this call. I'll make sure that the link is made available. And then, as I mentioned in the Q&A as well, you can visit the Industrial Insider web page, and you will be able to see the list of sessions that have previously been recorded, and also registered for upcoming sessions as well. So you can go ahead and scan that QR code there. I also just launched a Slido poll, so please direct your attention to the right side of your screen. And if you wouldn't mind going ahead and answering that quick question for us, that would be great. But in the meantime, John, it looks like we got one more question coming in. Can CyberVision be used to help aid CMMC audits?
CMMC audits. If that individual could, we definitely have auditing capabilities, but that's more on the CyberVision Splunk application side. I need to know CMMC. I'm not familiar with that specific one, but we could definitely give you insight on your security and your risk posture, and you can definitely use that data, for auditing purposes. So yes, in general terms, it's got GRC, governance, risk compliance capability, reporting in Splunk and the OT security on specifically. So I would have to know more around that particular thing. But just to answer that question more broadly, is we are seeing the regulatory landscape making requirements for OT asset visibility, and obviously they're also starting to look at a number of CISA advisories that came out speaking specifically about segmentation. So, not only that you need asset visibility across your environment, but that you also have to start taking action to start segmenting your network. So I think more of that is coming down the pipeline, and CyberVision definitely addresses both of those two aspects fundamentally. And with Splunk, you've got the risk reporting capability. And like I say, if there's requirements that you want to report against, you can definitely create that dashboard if it's not already created. But the Splunk library of dashboards and risk reporting frameworks is very extensive.
And CMC stands for the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. It's a federal government for anybody that does classified data with the government has to obtain their CMMC certificate. And there's 3 stages of it, and it's a series of 110 questions that you have to show. And it looks like the majority of it is built into it, or it can do it. So there may be just some, and so that's probably the next follow-up. Is there custom reporting models that you can put into CyberVision?
Yeah, I would have to follow up with that particular question on that. I mean, so you would be able to ingest the telemetry from CyberVision and then create a custom dashboard on reporting criteria that you're interested in seeing, and you know, understanding what those criteria are and what the, you know, compared to what data you're ingesting will give you that. But from a sort of risk profiling standpoint, understanding the risk profile of that asset, the CVE or CVSS risk scoring, you'll definitely be able to pull that information from CyberVision and understand whether, you know, from a vulnerability and risk standpoint, you'd be able to get that telemetry in and then map it to whatever you know, controls or framework that you have. So we can take that as a takeaway. I don't know if you can feel free to reach out. I don't know if we have a contact page, but Emily, if we can get this individual's details, we could definitely follow up, and I can get more information. If we can just DM.
Thanks, John.
Thank you for the question, though. I you know, we'll have to follow up on that, but I know that you know, the risk reporting is a big question that we're being, you know, that it's number one for folks, and that's really what the CyberVision application starts addressing, is allowing folks to start getting the reporting capabilities out of the tool, you know, so you can drive whatever governance and risk program that you need to.
And if you met that one, the CMMC, then, you know, like NERC SIP is very similar to it, you know, and they all kind of follow the NIST standard as well.
Yes.
So they're all very similar. They just have different nuances to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me get back to you on.
Thank you.
Give Emily your contact details, and we'll get you some insight on all of those aspects. You know, I want to talk from an informed position. I'm not super deep on that aspect, so we'll get back to you with the right information.
Thanks, Edward. We've got one more question. Would like to know if CyberVision is on-prem or SaaS-based solution.
Well, CyberVision can run on both. You can run it on-prem. Obviously, to take advantage of the CyberVision Site Manager capability would require a cloud connection. So that depends on you, but you can still run CyberVision. You can still run CyberVision on-prem. If that's your preference. We have customers that run it on-prem, and then you would just have to manually update your CyberVision sites as folks have been doing. So there is that ability to, but there are some other, you know, alternate ways that you can, you know, but you would require proxied access to the cloud to run CyberVision Site Manager.
Excellent. Well, I think that's it for questions. Unless anyone has anything else, please go ahead and add those in. If not, we're happy to get in contact with you after the session. And with that, we will go ahead and wrap things up. So like I said, you can scan this QR code to see upcoming sessions and also revisit previously recorded sessions as well. So look forward to seeing you there. Thanks again, John, and have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks.